All right. There's a famous quote from the Rocky movie that goes, "It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward." When it comes to success, Greg Scheinman can hit hard. With two seven-figure exits, a successful book, and much more, Greg knows what it feels like to succeed. However, sometimes we have to get hit too. Despite losing his father when he was only 17 years old and dealing with panic attacks, depression, alcoholism, Greg continues to get up and fight, and he is now living his message every day as the founder and face of MidLife Mail, where he strives to help men go from mediocre to maximized. At 50 years young, Greg has no intention of slowing down and believes his best years are still ahead of him. We are here today to talk about success, creating massive change in your life, and always being at the top of your game. Greg, welcome to the Define Success podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. Pleasure to have this conversation. Really looking forward to it. And I want to start off by asking you, you face adversity in your life. You're at an age where most people, the average human, is going to think about slowing down, retiring, just putting life on pause for a little bit, their adventures on pause. You keep going forward. Why is that?
I think we're products of our situations and circumstances. And for me, as you mentioned in the intro, I lost my father when I was 17 and he was 47 years old. And I've talked about this a lot. I am now 50 years old. You're 22. We talked about that,
Yeah.
right before we hit the button. I have a 19-year-old sleeping in the next bedroom who just got home from his freshman year of college. My 16-year-old is a sophomore in high school. I always thought 47 seemed so old.
Right.
Our parents seemed older. Our grandparents certainly seemed like really old. And then when I got into my 40s and I started thinking about the age when my father passed away, it didn't seem old anymore. In fact, it seemed like really, really, like really fucking young, like way too fucking young
Yeah.
to pass away and to not be living anymore. And I really took that to heart. And 47 kind of became, to me, like that's what I was aiming for. Like that was the benchmark age. And when I reached 47, where I think a lot of guys get into this midlife crisis mode in their 40s and they start thinking that their best days are behind them, not in front of them anymore. I got to 47, it was like, boom, like, okay, I just entered bonus time. Like the light bulb went off, it tripped to me. Hey, I'm going to be here longer than my dad. So how do I not squander these opportunities? How do I take everything that I've experienced, that I've lived through and learned, and how do I kind of like use my powers for good, going forward? I was super stoked and super energized and not like, hey, now is the time to pour rocket fuel on that. Now is really bonus time. What can I do from here? Because I've gone through and gotten through in what I felt like so much.
Yeah.
So, that was how I saw it. Then the real question, Matt, just became like, how? Like, okay, like you're here now, but like, how do you do the things that you really want to do? Like, what does that really look like? Let's take all this energy and now you got here. Then it became like, I get the why. I'm going to know, like, I get the why part. Now it's like, okay, let's get into the how. And that's what really lit me up and really got me excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a good mindset to have, that your best years are still yet to come and you're still, let's say in your prime. How do you think you will change your mindset maybe when 60 comes along, 70 comes along? Do you think there's a time where you're going to think, okay, maybe it's time to slow down, or is it always going to be this progression of I can still get better?
It's a great question. I'll preface it by saying that I always reserve the right to change my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
That's part of I think the process. That's part of living and learning and experiencing and embracing curiosity. And like you, I get to talk with different men, every week. So I'm constantly like gleaning into other perspectives and experiences that have made other guys successful. And I'm trying to kind of aggregate from that, pull it in and curate it down to what works for me, and then maybe eliminate the stuff that doesn't land, as well. So, I think the key is, one, have an open growth mindset. too. Like, don't be afraid to pivot, to change, to evolve, and grow, and reserve the right to change your mind. One guy that came on my podcast early on, and he talked about unlearning. There's a lot of learning that goes into living and growing, but there's also a lot of unlearning needs to go into that. And that's an aspect of it too. So, I do think that my mindset will continue to evolve and continue to change, hopefully and ideally for the better as we continue to age. But like now, like my wife and I joke that, while I'm 50 now, like, I might as well just start telling people I'm 60, because if I'm doing really well at 50, imagine what they would think if I just told them I was 60. Like you could really spread, like, whatever you can do, like, hey, whatever you're being successful, like, what could make this even seem more successful? If you're maximizing middle age at 50, imagine if you just told people you were 60, So not that I'm rushing or racing to get there, but man, like, I do want to change the mindset and perspective of midlife males in particular, but everyone in general, just to stop seeing aging as something to fear and really start seeing it as something aspirational. Because we do have this opportunity now to live longer and healthier and happier and wealthier and stronger and have more fun kind of in middle age and beyond, for a lot of different reasons. And it's the middle. It's not the end. And the middle, while it can be messy in life, it also, as I say, it's the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah. Why don't more people think like this?
I think misery loves company in a lot of ways. I think if we just played word association, I do that all the time. I throw out the word midlife. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Like crisis. You get, like there's association there. And these, again, just like anything, habits, behaviors, good and bad, stereotypes, these things take a long time to develop. And they take a long time to shift and to change and evolve. Right. And I think we're at a very exciting time right now, realistically. I think there's tremendous opportunity for men in middle age, unlike any other time before. I think the pandemic has opened up a lot of opportunities. I think there's an over-indexing in this quit your job and follow your passion thing for younger people, which is opening up other career opportunities for guys in middle age that didn't exist before. Because what do we want? We want guys that have experience, that can go deep, that are going to get up, they're going to show up, that are going to go to all of these other things. So to answer your question directly, like, I don't know why more necessarily don't feel this way right now, other than to say, I think that we're leaning into the dip right now.
Yeah. And
we're going to come out better the other side. Did that particular perspective and mindset, where midlife was associated with crisis, that it was associated with the dad bod and falling out of shape and maybe drinking a little bit too much and giving up our hobbies and things that brought us joy when we were younger, and shifting into the obligations and responsibilities, and what guys kind of, you pour it all on. It feels like obligations and kind of redundancy and repetitiveness, and also competitiveness, but not the way we used to define that. Activities and sports and everything, but now it's like business and making money, and paying bills, and we've got kids, and we've got wives, and we've got schools, and we've got all of this stuff. I think, man, it's time, and we're leaning into that dip, and we're going to come out better the other side. And that shift is going to be more towards positivity and hope and possibility and probability, for success. And as you said, redefining and reframing success, which is a lot of what I work on.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's definitely a lot of time left for a lot more success and happiness and all these other great things in life. But looking back at the life you've already lived, you've had a lot of success. Business, you've started businesses, sold them, you have a happy, healthy family. What have you learned about the successes in your life that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, I think with every success, if you will, it's easier from the outside looking in to look at somebody's, let's say, resume or bio and go success.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, and I think we'll get to this in a second, is we tend to really fixate and focus almost on the things that don't go as well, you know, and talking about the things that didn't go as well, or almost to justify success by, let me tell you a story of where I got punched in the face. You know, as he said, let me tell you how shitty this really went, you know, to be like, hey, I don't think people sometimes realize what goes into being an overnight success, or what goes into the makeup of that bio, you know, and life resume. You know, what I've learned, I think, from the successes that I've had, and it's really the same as the failures. It's like, don't get too high on the highs, and don't get too low on the lows.
Yep.
You know, there's really something about developing a rhythm and a cadence and a security and a confidence level and an inner circle that calls you on your bullshit, you know, and holds you accountable, and that the basics and the fundamentals really work. We tend to chase what we think success looks like. And we tend to chase kind of like what's sexy, you know, or comparative to our neighbors or another guy or another, you know, like a little bit of the grass is always greener, and we've got that hustle and grind and 24/7 and sleep when we're dead, you know, and all that. You know, no, like it's all just bullshit. It really is. You know what really matters is, you know, keep moving forward, incremental wins, daily little victories, authenticity, doing what feels right, you know, for you. We're all prioritizing what really matters, getting into greater harmony earlier, you know, rather than thinking, again, it has to be these high highs or low lows, and this is what we're supposed to do, follow the pattern. Sure, you know, map it out. Absolutely. Like, try some different things.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, like, you can successfully fail too. I think that's a concept that is often overlooked. You know, the majority of the experiences and the shots that you take are not going to go in. They're not going to go well. But can you successfully fail? Meaning, what have I learned from that? What can I take away from that? So that I keep gaining experience and gaining value, and I'm increasing my opportunities and chances and odds for success as I continue to move on, you know, down the road. Like, you work with athletes. I mean, like, there's a purpose and a process and ultimately a payoff to everything that the great ones do.
Right.
It doesn't happen by default. It happens by design. But that design has to also allow for shit to not go well. If it all just goes well, again, how do you understand how to deal with adversity? You know, how do you develop grit? How do you, again, as you said, get punched in the face? How do you get back up?
Right.
If you never get knocked down, you never know that. You never learn that. And I think that's where a lot of this now, like this kind of trend, it's gotten a little sexy, like getting comfortable being uncomfortable, you know, kind of comes from. And I think we just also need to spend some time really also figuring out, like, what type of discomfort, like as my buddy Sterling Hawkins said in his book, Hunting Discomfort, like, what kind of discomfort should we be hunting that's really good for us?
Yeah.
And how do we break through that? Because I think that's really like what success looks like.
Yeah, it's so great. And it's like society, like you said, puts on you the hustle culture and work till you die and all this different stuff that we're expected to do. But if it's not for the right reason, if you're just doing it because someone on Instagram or a podcast is telling you to do it, it might not line up with your purpose. Was there ever a time in your life where you were investing in that hustle culture and you were nonstop working? And how did you get out of that to realize that there's more to life than just work, work, work?
Absolutely. I mean, I fell deep into it, you know, what I call the over-indexing trap. And I think that this goes for everything in a way, like, because I've done it and experienced it in a number of areas. You know, on the work side, I mean, look, you get married, you have children, then you are not only supposed to go to work, you have to go to work, and in my case, needed to go to work. And I grew up in an environment where we had plenty of money, quite frankly, and everybody around us had more money, you know, and there was not a lot of adversity, and there wasn't a lot of hardship. In a lot of ways, there wasn't anywhere to go but down. So it took me a while to also figure out the value of money, like even how much, like how far out of touch with reality I was like in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my 30s, what it really took to get it done, how much sacrifice you need to make. And there was absolutely a long period of hustle and grind where things went both well and things went poorly.
Yeah.
I made movies in my 20s, and that was just tons of hours and tons of
Mm-hmm.
frustration. And then I realized I didn't really love doing that. That wasn't the greatest thing, for me. And then we moved. My wife is from Houston, so I relocated to Houston where I knew no one. It's like, okay, how are we going to build a career and a life, down here? And what does that look like? And went from selling DVDs out of the trunk of my car outside of football stadiums,
Wow.
every weekend, to building a business that was worth millions of dollars in a relatively short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the entire market change around what I had built. And as quickly as things go up, you also learn they can come down just
Mm-hmm.
as quickly, if not, by the way, if not a lot faster. Pure
Right.
gravity, gravity is an interesting concept, and it works
Oh yeah.
financially too. It comes down a lot faster than it goes up, and then you struggle with identity, and maybe you're a little bit older, and maybe you don't have the energy that you had before, and that boulder that you've been pushing uphill gets heavier,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
and the top seems farther and farther away. And then you start to think about, okay, what can I do now? What do I need to do now? And I think that's where it gets really, really tough for men in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mid to late 30s, I had to make a real shift, from being a risk-taking entrepreneur flying by the seat of my pants, thinking I could just do anything and create and it would be fine, to
Mm-hmm.
being a guy, look, who's now been married like 15 years. I now have 2 children. Our overhead's gotten pretty freaking high.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tuck my tail between my legs and go, like, actually to work.
Right.
And then joined a large firm and ended up, or not a large firm at the time, but a smaller firm at the time, and ultimately ended up investing there and going more of like from risk taker to like risk manager. Like, what does
Mm-hmm.
that look like to have a 401k and to have benefits for the first time that I didn't pay for, a company paid for,
Mm-hmm.
and to have partners and to have coworkers and colleagues, really, really different stuff. And that was a complete, for lack of a better, it was a complete mind fuck for a while
Yeah.
to figure out how to navigate through that. And that was a chapter that was almost 15 years of my life
Mm-hmm.
before we exited from that company, and changed my entire perspective on what work-life balance really looks like, what authenticity really feels like, and what inauthenticity really feels like, and
Mm-hmm.
types of clients you want to work with, and how all of it fits. And I find that really, I find it and found it really, really fascinating personally, and professionally, and
Mm-hmm.
how you can approach life when you're not the CEO of the business, but yet you're still the CEO of your own life, and how do
Mm-hmm.
those things coexist?
Yeah, that's a great message right there, being the CEO of your life, because then you take ownership for the success and the failure. If something goes right, you are responsible, but if something does not go right, you are also responsible. And taking that ownership is something that I think will propel you to more success, because you have a more accountability towards yourself. You're not pointing the finger and the blame on other people, playing the victim. So if you are in the driver's seat, you're placing yourself as CEO of your own life, and these failures, these adversities pop up, like you said, with gravity, like you build something, it could come tearing, crashing right back down. So how do you deal with that? What lessons have you learned about becoming, more optimistic about the future, having that grit to continue to push forward?
Mm. Now I really lean on my family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in that regard, right now, it's easier for me because I come home and within the 4 walls of my house, there's my wife and my boys and our dogs
Mm-hmm.
and all of the things that I love and care about more than anything in the world. And my gym is in the garage, like all these like the world that we have created together as a family unit. That's what I lean on.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me moving forward. And just leaning in, to that love, and leaning into that support, and leaning into that possibility, and hope. And to your point, owning all of the situations and circumstances and communicating about them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think it's important that my boys see what I do each and every day
Mm-hmm.
and have an understanding, or at least a dialogue around what I'm going through and what I'm dealing with. And we talk about perception and perspective a lot, because right now, like, I work from home. Like, I'm sitting upstairs, just in what used to be the kids' game room that I've now taken over to do stuff like this
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. And now I gotta reevaluate. And it's different now. Like, now I'm in a t-shirt, all day, or gym
Mm-hmm.
clothes, or sitting
Right.
outside and just around all the time. And I don't want them to have the wrong perspective about, also what it takes to, what work looks like too.
Mm-hmm. True.
And, in that regard, because maybe they saw it differently for years. It's somebody in a suit, and I was going back and forth and out all day and all the time. And I think just operated very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw the pros and cons of all of that. So now it's just really about leaning in. And I think about sharing experiences, what I'm picking up each day, what I'm going through, where the challenges are. That is amazing as it is to work with guys across the country right now and really be putting out, what I hope is content that can help, guys out there maximize middle age and all of the things that we're talking about. How draining it also can be
Mm-hmm.
to hear what's going on in the lives of so many men, and to sometimes feel as helpless as you feel hopeful and
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because the mission keeps getting bigger, and there's more to do. And yeah, I can do it in a t-shirt sitting in my backyard in a lot of ways. But let's also sit down and talk about, like, what we had to do to get to this position,
Right.
and how we made money, and how we lost money, and how we
Mm-hmm.
have to take care of it now, and how we have to extend our runways, and how it is that you're getting to go to college, and all of those things that are in the bucket. And I just think it's super, super important to talk about it. And
Yeah.
we never did any of this when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. So I'm just a slow learner and a late bloomer. And I think if you compare, like, well, this wasn't working, so what was I doing when shit wasn't working?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe if I try the opposite, or maybe that'll work. Or, even better, like what you're doing, right now, is exactly what I did. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
the answers to the questions. Half the time, I didn't even know the questions to ask. So let me
Right.
go find the right people and try to ask them the right questions, or at least lob something out there and see if they'll start talking
Mm-hmm.
back to me.
Yep.
Because that's how we pick shit up. You go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's how you're supposed to do it, or that's
Mm-hmm.
a way to do it that's different from how I've been doing it. And let me get that guy looks like he's doing pretty well with it, or it worked out pretty well for him. So let me try to do those things,
Mm-hmm.
because I can tell you what's not working. What's not working was, drinking and staying out late, and ignoring my health and
Mm-hmm.
not being present when I came home. You could easily start to write that stuff down. Just draw a line in the middle of the paper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then start doing the stuff you should be doing that you're not doing. It's not hard. I mean, it's simple.
Mm-hmm. Everybody
In
knows it.
theory, yes.
Yeah.
What's hard is doing it
Mm-hmm.
and reminding yourself each day that that's what you need to do. You need to make better choices the majority of the time. You start making better choices the majority of the time, the majority of your life starts getting better.
For sure.
And you can do this: family, fitness, finance, food, fat, fun. You can apply this to every single category of life. It's exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they're all connected.
Definitely. Yeah. You've mentioned communication a couple of times, and I think it's a very good theme, a very good lesson, especially for males, because it's often stigmatized for people to open up about their life or hardships or anything, like even success. I feel like could be included in there. You, with what you're saying, I feel like is coming from a spot that men should be more open about what is happening in their lives, sharing with the people that matter to them, seek help if they need it. How can we get better at this? Why is it so important?
Yeah. Well, it's extremely hard. It's hard for me to even answer the question because to tell you, I don't think there's one singular answer,
Right.
to it. Uh, what I do feel is I think like a lot of this, we have to continue to work on it. That silence and bottling things up and just conformity and complacency and falling into again the stereotypes that we don't talk about this stuff or we don't know, probably not the best way to
Mm-hmm.
go about things.
Mm-hmm.
Quantifiably, I mean, doesn't stack up to what we would consider success and fulfillment and happiness and prosperity and all of the things emotionally, physically, spiritually, and even financially
Mm-hmm.
that we want. So how do we? Why is it so important? Because I believe if you're going to do it, if you're going to put things in order, like happiness is important.
Yeah.
Purpose is important. Fulfillment is important. Authenticity is important. Confidence and being content with who you are and those things are all really, really important. And I don't think it's about having to be a great communicator.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly not about having to be perfect in the manner in which you articulate your feelings and your emotions and your vulnerabilities. I also don't think that you have to join masterminds and sit in circles and immediately get into deep therapy and all this. I think
Right.
there's over indexing in that too. I think it's become almost cool and buzzworthy. Like this is now what we do as men. Like we all have to get super deep and super vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think again, it's really about finding what works for you.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And that can be shallow and wide to an extent. It can be narrow and deep. It can be taking your dogs for a walk and talking to yourself. It can
Mm-hmm.
be asking your wife to join you. It can be, a little extra time with your kids in each day. It can be leaving your phone, in the car when you walk in the house instead of coming in while you're still doing everything, on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think, also about kind of a presence of being available also to communicate and
Mm-hmm.
not being as closed off and as standoffish as maybe we have perceived ourselves to be or how others have perceived us,
Mm-hmm.
to be. I think it's just that willingness. And you talked about mindset early on in this. I think it is about shifting that mindset, even just slightly, to be open to try.
Yeah.
None of this stuff again happens overnight. Try and have one conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Ask somebody how they're doing rather than like what they do. Like shift one little thing and try to take one little step. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go, if you're going to start running, you likely tomorrow would not just go out and run a marathon. I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
running today. And I'm going to let me go, oh, what does that look like? It looks like 26.2 miles tomorrow. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think just like we can quantify, and there are programs for all kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
develop your program for how you want to even become a better communicator and how you want to be communicated with, and identify maybe who even you want to communicate
Mm-hmm.
with,
Mm-hmm.
and also whose communication might not be working, for you. A lot of ways, it's not what I'm doing, it's what I'm not doing that's even
Right.
made, the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm.
We can kind of tell what fills our tank and what drains it. And I just think we need to become more attuned to that and look for doing the ability and the opportunities by design, create it so that we do more of those things that fill our tank and fewer of those things that drain it.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean ignore and throw caution to the wind with our obligations and responsibilities. It means how do we position it and how do we allow for it and how do we allocate properly?
Yeah.
All of these things.
Yeah. That's great. That's really, really good stuff right there. And I believe the way we show up in our conversations with people, the way we show up in the business world, a lot of it comes down to how we take care of ourselves. And a big part of that is your health and your fitness. You are a big proponent of this. You're in great shape. You're always, working out, challenging yourself physically, mentally. What is the importance? What is this? Why is it a priority to you to maintain your health, your standard of health and fitness at age 50?
Look, I think it's important in every age and at every stage of life.
Right.
I think that sustainability, longevity, huge. I think fun is so underrated and underemphasized, now that it's fun to be healthy.
It
It's
is.
fun to have energy. It feels good to be able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, with who you want to do it with, for as long as you want to do it for. Like, to me, that stuff lights me up. It's fun to be able to play with my boys. It's fun to not let them win, like to go after and be
Right.
like, hey, you gotta like earn this and stuff. Like, it's, I hope it's, you know what? I don't even know if it's as much fun for them as it is for me, but you know what? It's fun for me. Okay.
Yeah.
In there. Like, it's fun to not make things easy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's what fitness provides. It provides this incredible outlet for, again, opportunity and hope and possibility, and to feel good and to look good. And when you feel good and you look good, you tend to perform well. And I think it carries over into all areas of your life, how you perceive yourself, and then how others perceive you. These, to me, are all really good things. I've yet to find a negative
Yeah.
to prioritizing your health and wellness. And I mean that, Matt, in all areas, that it's not about, there's a lot of white space between being unhealthy and unfit and being like super jacked and doing marathons and CrossFit competitions. You don't have to go there. Again, the middle is the sweet spot.
Yep.
You get to decide for you really what health, wellness, all these things look like. What I'm proposing is just don't ignore it. That it is one facet of a successful, if we're talking about defining success, a successful portfolio of life.
Yeah.
That, again, these things all matter. It's your mental health, it's your spiritual health, it's your financial health, it's your physical health. All of these things fall into the health and fitness bucket. And by definition, if you are hurt or injured, frankly, or broke, or you're unfit.
Yeah.
You're unfit for duty. That's basically, you either are or you are not able to show up and perform. Question is, again, how do you want to show up? How do you want to perform?
Yeah, that's really, I mean, you want to do it the best output possible, have the best potential. I think that's where most people would agree, but it comes down to, are you willing to put the action in, like you said before? I know fitness has a lot of moving parts that they need to come together to properly function well and see the results. But from your experience, if you could answer this, is there one thing that stands out as like the highest ROI? Is it eating healthy, lifting weights? Is it the cold plunge you do? Like, is there anything that stands out that most people should focus on as a priority when they start out?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing that you mentioned, like, what's the priority? The priority is just starting.
Right.
There's never a perfect day to start. There'll never be a perfect program, never be the perfect time, anything. The key, the first thing is to just commit to starting. And like anything else, start slow and start small and be realistic. And that applies for everything in life. I don't think it's necessarily just one thing, but I think the one thing, if there is to let me just try to make better choices in a few key areas more frequently.
Yeah.
And then try to work into habits and behaviors and changes so that they become a lifestyle. Don't think about dieting. Think about eating a little bit healthier. Don't think about the outcome of if I'm going to lift weights for 7 months and I'm going to look exactly like this guy, or a year. Think about, again, the actions you can take each day that are going to get you close. The outcome becomes inevitable if you're taking certain actions.
Yep.
I love walking. Walking is fantastic. Then you can graduate to maybe weighted walks, where you wear like a weighted pad or something. There's always a next step. You never graduate from any of these things, but there's always progress. If you're drinking a ton of Diet Cokes every day, have one less Diet Coke tomorrow. Swap it out for water. If you're not the greatest, start with also education, which becomes, I think, motivating and inspiring. Hey, if you haven't had an annual physical in years, go start there. Get an
Mm-hmm.
annual physical. If you don't really know what your body responds well to or not with food, go make an appointment with a nutritionist or a dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't exercised in years or you've let yourself go, or even if you know exactly what to do, but again, you struggle with doing it, go hire a trainer before you just join a gym and walk in and don't even walk in. Or when you walk in, you don't know what you're going to do or even want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
I'm just big into the view of the preparation and the consistency and the accountability more than the intensity. Quite frankly, it doesn't really matter all that much like what you do physically.
Mm-hmm.
It does matter that you continue to do it and that you prioritize consistency over intensity. It's really more of the getting the reps,
Mm-hmm.
putting the time in. And one healthy meal becomes a second healthy meal. One day of walking becomes a second day of walking. And maybe it comes a little bit farther, the next time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start to, if you take a picture of yourself on day one, and then you take another picture of yourself on day two, you are not going to see any difference.
Right. Not at all.
You take a picture of yourself on day one and you take consistent positive action steps each and every day for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Take pictures at those intervals. I assure you, you will see noticeable
Mm-hmm.
differences.
Guaranteed.
Yes. I think the trap and some of the things that people fall into too often just to pay attention to is don't try to do too much too soon.
Absolutely.
You go from 0 to 100, you are going to blow the engine.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go from 100 to 0, you are going to fry the brakes. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, even what I do. You're not going to wake up every day at 6 o'clock in the morning and walk for 3 miles with a 30-pound vest on, and then train for an hour and eat the perfect breakfast and get into your cold plunge and have sex with your wife and see your kids off to school and work all day and come home and read a book, listen to a podcast, get into your sauna, take the perfect, and go to sleep. It doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm. No.
Like I say, you see these, I get off on a tangent, but it's like sometimes you see these routines of like out there and it's just like, you gotta be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, maybe you could do it for a day or like shit, anybody can post anything over and over again.
Right.
But
Yep.
like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
really? That doesn't seem like so much fun to me to do this 365 days a year or
Mm-hmm.
have somebody scripted like stuff to down to the minute.
Yep.
This is when I'm going to pray and this is when I'm going to meditate and this is when I'm going to journal and this is when I'm going to take a breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most people want to be 100% bought in with all the right things going for them, but then that lasts like 4 to 6 weeks, or maybe even shorter, and they burn out and they can't sustain that level of morning routine or daily habits. But why not just do 90% good for life? Just, you can keep the structure of the routine, but a little flexibility will make it so much more longer for you.
And look, and I think you take a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah.
I think what gets lost and what needs to be emphasized is really at the heart of what you're doing. It's defining what success really looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you map that out? And then how do you reverse engineer back to what that really looks like?
Right.
On an
Yeah.
annual basis, on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, we went down to the days. And what does that really look like?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you string those days together? Not perfectly, but like perfectly imperfectly.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, this is like what the capacity is. Like I do 3 personal and 3 professional things per day. Like that's what I have the bandwidth for.
Mm-hmm.
Before shit gets all out of alignment and gets all and it doesn't feel so good. It doesn't work so well. Today I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to coach a few of my clients because my Thursday schedule became my Monday schedule
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going out of town on Thursday. I've got to interview a guy for my podcast later and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else on the list is going to get started until tomorrow.
Yeah. Still move the needle though. Still making progress.
Yes. Whereas before, there was a lot of busyness without productivity.
Yep.
And then there's also the paralysis by analysis. There's so much on the list that you don't know where to start. So you invariably just don't really do anything, or you just do a half-assed job at a bunch of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you become very reactive versus proactive and intentional.
Yeah.
I think that's really where we got to spend a lot of time. At
Hmm.
least that I'm finding with both myself and a lot of the men that I work with. Like, hey, knowing what's important is what's most important.
Yeah,
If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there.
absolutely.
Like you have a business, I could ask almost, and show me your business plan, or show me your company's business plan, or show me your KPIs, that your manager gave you, or show me that, like, show it to me. I could get it easily. Now, show me that for your life.
Most
They don't
people don't
have it.
have it. Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean?
Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, seriously, I would like you to hand me a document that shows me who you are and how you live. And it should be based around what's important to you and how you're making that happen.
Hmm.
And if you don't have that, well, I think that's where we need to start.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Really good. And it just goes back to taking ownership as the CEO of your life. You got to have the plan and the structure to make it into something successful, just like a business you might want to create. And when it comes to your experience, you have, I mean, all facets of life, business, family, fitness, you have had a lot of success, a lot of lessons learned. If you were to leave 3 rules for life for your 2 boys, what would those 3 rules be?
Mm. Uh, I'm going to make it four, or
Okay.
maybe I'll make it one thing if that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because look, the majority of what even I do now, and a lot of what I talk about is because I've been so blessed to talk to other men and people that are farther down the road than I am and more successful. And quite frankly, take it, steal it, use it, regurgitate it, put it on out there.
Hmm.
Um, and one of those things is a book called The Four Agreements.
Yep.
And yeah, if you're familiar with The Four Agreements, it's an amazing book. And I was turned on to this book by one of my first coaches. And I'm going to take it here, for that purpose, because I've adopted it
Hmm.
and it's made a huge impact on my life, and hopefully it will for my boys and everyone. And really, it's those four things. And I think it is about being impeccable, with your
Hmm.
word. I think it really is about not taking things personally, which I still struggle with.
Hmm. Yep.
We all
It's the
we all
hardest
do
one.
a lot. I think don't make assumptions and judgments. Again, guilty as charged for a long time.
Hmm.
Do you create scenarios and things in your head? Don't, and then always do your best.
Yeah.
That's what success looks like. Are you proud of it? Are you proud of the effort that you've put in? And I think if you can stick to those four things, like really, if you can get real, get raw, get naked, look yourself in the mirror and then like, okay, yes, this is the way I'm operating.
Hmm.
I think that's pretty good. I think you're
Yeah.
doing better than most.
Yeah. Way better than most. I love that. When you look at 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, is there a big mistake or a problem you see with that generation that could make them better?
No, I don't know, man, if it's so much about like that making them better or looking down at the
Right.
younger generation and saying, here's exactly again what you should do on there. But I do think that the one thing that I would offer is don't rush.
Hmm.
And maybe that's cliche as we get older in there, but I just think there's a great emphasis on doing too much too quickly. And I think there's more time. And maybe as we get older and we stay healthier and we see that there's a lot up ahead. Okay, what was I rushing for?
Yeah.
I remember like, okay, I almost rushed to get out of college. Oh, I could do college in
Hmm.
3.5 years. Like I could take more credits, like rushing to get through college and then rushing to get my first job and then rushing to figure out like what I was going to do and rushing to quit if I didn't like it and then
Hmm.
rushing into the next thing. Like slow down a little bit.
Right.
Like that's okay too. You've got time. Not sure what you want to be and what you want to do. Like that's okay. You don't have if listen, it's great. If you know from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep that you want to be a doctor or you want to, save the whales or you want to, that's awesome if you have
Hmm.
that. I never had that.
Yeah. It's rare.
I had ideas and thoughts of what I thought I wanted to be and what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, you know, I liked, and more often than not, once I got into it and tried it and learned, no, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one, hey, slow down, take some time, think about it. You got more time than you think. So don't you don't have to just look around and look at like what Steven is doing and look at what Eric and all these other people are doing and be like, oh
Mm-hmm.
shit, like everyone's so far ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
Run your own race there. And then the second thing, if I could offer,
Yeah.
hey, is like work is work. Again, like not everything is going to be rainbows and unicorns and you're going to be super passionate about it and it's going to be no.
Yeah.
Like that work can be work too. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with getting like a really good job and getting paid really well and making a bunch of money and not loving what you do every single day, but use it also to fund your hobbies and your
Mm-hmm.
positive and your behaviors. And
Mm-hmm.
you stay the course there too. I think again, I think there's both sides of that. Now, look, if you're super unhappy and it doesn't really feel like that, and then I get that, also.
Mm-hmm.
But don't rush also to get out of something just because it's hard or because it feels like work or that the grass is always green, the grass is greener somewhere else, because you are going to go from 20 to 30. You are
Yeah.
going to go from 30 to 40. There will be a tipping point in your life where, sorry, like coaching CrossFit classes at 5:00 in the morning for $30 a class, like isn't as fulfilling
Mm-hmm.
3 years later, or when you meet the woman of your dreams and you want to get married and then you want to buy a house and you want to get there, you got to start to think a little bit,
Yeah.
again, to
Different
your point about
seasons.
what success looks like. And at the same time, the opposite, if you're on a career path that has a lot of promise and everything to it, you may want to think about not getting off that train
Mm-hmm.
just because the hours are long and the days are hard and you got to wear a tie or whatever. Again, I've been to all like,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying is think it through
Yeah.
and enlist other people to help you think it through.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
how you see it. Look for mentors and advisors and friends and people that can help you see it maybe differently and also help see you through it, also that again, you can make better decisions
Mm-hmm.
more often.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
I have
real.
been a master of self-sabotage
Mm-hmm.
for a long period of time. And sometimes the answer is, hey, yeah, I probably wish I would have stuck that one out, a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah. That's great advice. Yeah. It's important to know and just constantly ask yourself what's best for me. And if you said, like you said, enlist help if you need it and try to help some people guide you on the right direction. Greg, before my last question for you, where can people find you on social media, your podcast, your book? Where do you want them to be redirected after this?
Yeah, thank you. Best place is midlifemail.com. So you can go over to midlifemail.com. You can subscribe to the weekly newsletter, which comes out every Sunday, the podcast. You can pick up a copy of the book. I think it links you right over to Amazon, which is where everybody's getting books these
Mm-hmm.
days. And then on social, I typically hang out on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So that's just at Greg Scheinman, and you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, Greg, my last question for you. What is the defining factor about you that makes you successful, but other men not?
Mm. One, I would preface it by I don't consider myself more or less successful necessarily than any other guy out there. I just
Okay.
consider myself just a guy,
Mm-hmm.
just doing what I'm doing. And hopefully that's working for me, and my family. And maybe that's it right there, because that in itself has taken a long time to get to that level of comfort and
Mm-hmm.
being able to say that. eh, I'm just not in competition with anybody
Mm-hmm.
else
That's
anymore,
good.
other than myself, which is, am I doing what feels right for me each day?
Mm-hmm.
Are we able to pay our pay our bills, handle our responsibilities, handle our obligations, value, who and what we value. And that's, I think that's really it. What I'm enjoying now, Matt, and what I really feel like a success doing is having conversations like this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, being of service. Hey, how can I help you? Maybe who do you know that can help me?
Mm-hmm.
And trying to move the ball forward for myself in a manner that also helps a lot of other guys. And well, you know what? Yeah, I'm dealing with that too. Or thank you
Mm-hmm.
for sharing that. Or that was a good, that's what feels like success to me now. Where it goes, who knows? But there's 53 million middle-aged men in this country alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're underserved. And
For
I think
sure.
we're underrepresented. And I think there's just this incredibly unique opportunity that I'm blessed with having right now that feels like success, that I can maybe add some value there.
Mm-hmm.
And for the younger guys coming up, I can help them also see around the bend a little bit because I
Yeah.
didn't have that.
Yeah.
If we could expedite the learning curve, save me 5 years, save me my $100,000, save me mistake, like all that.
Mm-hmm.
What's really cool is how many younger guys reach out. This is not what I expected either. How many younger guys reach out and ask those questions, guys that are proactive and looking ahead and willing to ask those questions and explore those vulnerabilities and the unknown of what's out there. I think that's really cool because I didn't have that and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel that myself. I didn't know that was an option to operate that way. So that's super cool to me. Quite frankly, guys like you that are closer in age to my own kids than
Mm-hmm.
than we are, to
Right.
being able to have these conversations and get off, and like I'm excited to be like, hey, like Auden, wake up. I just talked to a 22-year-old sports agent who's based out of Austin, Texas, and he does this. Like, you should look into that, like what that guy's doing,
Yeah.
and like, hey, like build community and
Mm-hmm.
build relationships and ask for those opportunities and connections and do it. So, longer answer than maybe you were looking for, but I
That was
think it
great.
feels like all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I definitely learned a lot and just love hearing and picking your brain about your experience and what success and failure means to you. So, Greg, I really appreciate your time, all the value you dropped. This has been an amazing time with you.
Matt, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The doors is wide open to you anytime. So whatever I can
Thank you
do to
so
help
much.
support, I am happy to do it.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Greg.
You too.